I'm Ted Rowlands in for Vinnie Politan. We continue our investigation of child killer Lori Daybell, who was convicted in her latest murder trial of taking the life of her fourth husband, Charles, so that she could be with her fifth husband, Chad, and try to collect on $1 million of life insurance money. Here's the story. We call Lori Daybell the Doomsday Cult Mom. She was convicted in Idaho for the murders of her two youngest children, 7-year-old Joshua JJ and 16-year-old Tylee Ryan, as well as for conspiring to kill her fifth husband's first wife, Tammy Daybell. In July of 2023, she received 3 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. Prosecutors argued that Vallow Daybell's extreme religious beliefs, which included apocalyptic prophecies and labeling her children as zombies, motivated the killings. The children's remains were discovered in 2020 on her fifth husband Chad's property in Idaho. Following her Idaho convictions, Lori was extradited to Arizona, where she faced charges for conspiring to murder her fourth husband, Charles. In 2019, Lori was also convicted for collaborating with her brother, Alex Cox, to kill Charles and claim his life insurance money. Lori was also found guilty of trying to kill her niece's ex-husband, Brandon Boudreaux. Now, Lori is about to learn her fate for her Arizona crimes. Over the years, Lori has said a lot of things, and what she hasn't really done is take any sort of responsibility. In Idaho, when she was convicted of 3 murders, including the murders of her 2 children, this is what she had to say.
Jesus knows me, and Jesus understands me. I mourn with all of you who mourn my children and Tammy. Jesus Christ knows the truth of what happened here. Jesus Christ knows that no one was murdered in this case. Because of this experience, I have access to heaven and the spirit world. Since then, I have had many communications from people now living in heaven, including my children, Tylee Ashlyn and Joshua Jackson. I know for a fact that my children are happy and busy in the spirit world. Because of my communications with my friend Tammy Daybell, I know that she is also very happy and extremely busy.
Her friend, Tammy Daybell. Let's get our first question in for the night, and it will be, will Lori come clean? Are we going to hear anything out of her in Arizona when she is sentenced later this week? Here to help answer that question is Lori Vallow Daybell's Uncle Rex Connor. He's also co-host of the podcast Silver Linings and the author of the book Lori's Lies and Family's Ties. And Arizona criminal defense attorney Josh Colesrud is with us as well. Rex, what do you think? Anything out of Lori or more mumbo jumbo?
I don't think the mumbo jumbo will stop until she dies. And so I believe she is so committed and so engulfed by the evil she perpetrated that we aren't going to hear anything else from her.
Josh, have you ever had a client like Lori? She ended up not even needing a lawyer. She represented herself there in Arizona, but she seemed to be directing traffic, and I'm not sure where her head is. And what do you do if you're representing someone like Lori, and how do you navigate those waters?
Sure. So if I'm her attorney, I'm probably going to counsel her not to come clean, because if she does come clean, it could negatively affect her appeal. And frankly, you know, with Lori Vallow anyway, she's not the type of person who wants to come clean anyway, and she probably doesn't even see a benefit. She's going to get a life sentence without the possibility of parole, and it's going to be stacked. That is, you know, consecutive. And there's no way that the judge, I think, is going to give her concurrent terms. So, you know, she did an interview at the end of June on TV. It was about 40 minutes long. And I think that her sentencing hearing is going to be very similar to that interview where she said that she's not an evil person. She doesn't have a violent bone in her body. And basically that she had nothing to do with any of the murders and that it's just a family affair. I would fully expect that she's going to give some type of sermon to everybody in a Charles Manson type of way, justifying, herself and, of course, blaming everybody else.
Yeah, and probably she's going to echo those opening statements and closing arguments that she had on behalf of herself, which were basically self-serving and saying this is a family tragedy, nothing more, nothing to see here. Rex, can you give us a sense of who Lori was when she was younger, growing up? She seemed like she was a good mother. She had a lot going for her. From your perspective, what was the other Lori like?
Yeah, I'll try to do that. We've been doing our podcast for 2 years and talking about her, and I've become more and more disgusted with the evil she perpetrated. So it's a little bit tough to go back, but
when you go back, do you see the evil Lori now in retrospect? Did you go back? Oh, no.
No, two different Loris. And so, people have told us all the time, I'm co-host of my podcast is Lori's brother, Adam, the good brother. And people tell us, well, we're naive. She was always evil. If she did this evil now, she's always been that evil. That could be. We didn't see into her heart and mind. We aren't perfect judge of people. But we saw a very happy, very positive, very loving, devoted mother that whole time. And so those were her actions. Again, not saying into her heart and mind. But that obviously changed rather quickly as she started down a path of, choosing evil.
Josh, you don't think she should or will come clean at her sentencing hearing? What about later down the road? Do people who are in prison for a while eventually come clean, whether they are touched from religion or just have a sort of a moment where they realize they're never going to get out? So, all right, I'm going to admit it as a way of self-healing.
I would say that in the past, dealing with cult-like figures and cult murder cases, that it takes decades for that type of acceptance of responsibility to manifest itself. And I'm thinking specifically of the Charles Manson murders and those that committed the murders on his behalf. In that case, he had his followers that committed the murders, and they didn't come clean right away, but they did decades later. And if Lori Vallow is ever going to come clean, I don't think it's going to be for a very long period of time.
Yeah. Let's listen to Lori in her opening statement, representing herself, saying this, nothing to see here. This was no crime.
As the state has mentioned, they are alleging that insurance money was my motive. Social Security was my motive. Spouses having insurance policies is not a crime. Collecting Social Security is not a crime. Self-defense is not a crime. A family tragedy is not a crime. It's a tragedy.
Rex, what was her motive? Was it to be with
Josh
Chad?
Cole's rude. It cut me off again.
Looks like we have a little technical problem with Josh. Rex, what was her motive in your mind, especially with Charles's murder? Was it the money? Was it to be with Chad? What do you think?
Yes, and I like the way the Idaho prosecution laid it out. Sex, power, money. I can't remember the order that they used, but I believe it is a combination of those factors. Again, not saying into her heart and mind, but there's nothing pure about it. There's nothing good about it. It's pure evil. Sex, power, and money is consistent with that.
Yeah, there's the old video of them getting served, Lori in her bikini and Chad looking awkward next to the pool. in Hawaii. We'll see what happens here. Are you anticipating anything of substance out of the Arizona sentencing hearing?
You know, what comes of substance out of that are the people around it, the law enforcement, the attorneys, the media, all the good people around it. It's such a beautiful community that's formed around it. It's a silver lining against this black cloud, but I have very low expectations of Lori and hearing anything good about her. I hope we can all rally around her oldest son, surviving son, Colby, had health problems the last few days, needs our prayers, love, support. That's going to happen for sure as all these people get together that have formed a loving community around this horrific tragedy.
Absolutely, well said. And yeah, Colby has been through a lot. Larry and Kay will have their opportunity to say something, and you know they get justice in Arizona. That was part of the equation there for Charles's murder. Thanks to Josh Colesrud for being with us. Rex is going to stick around. Coming up next, who else did Alex Cox kill?
And that's when he said, I think I am being their fall guy.
Bryan Kohberger accepted a plea offer.
A shocking turn of events.
How do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
Convicted killer Bryan Kohberger will learn his fate for murdering 4 Idaho college students.
He is the boogeyman.
And come face to face with the families of his victims.
And I pray that we have justice.
The sentencing of Bryan Kohberger. Live coverage begins Wednesday morning, only on Court TV.
Lori's brother, Alex. You're going to hear about Alex Cox. Alex Cox was Lori's protector. Alex Cox would do anything and everything to protect, aid, and assist Lori Vallow in whatever her endeavors. Without unbridled question, anything.
We are investigating Lori Vallow Daybell ahead of her sentencing in Arizona. And one of the things that is absolutely true, Lori never physically killed anybody. Alex Cox was the family hitman. That was just John Pryor, who represented Chad Daybell, the great John Pryor, saying that he was the loyal person that would do anything for Lori and Chad. So what was Lori's role here, and what was Alex Cox's? What was anything your sister says you're going to do, including killing people, including killing children? Well, Alex would tell his wife, Zulema, that he thought that he was being set up by Lori and Chad to be the fall guy.
And that's when he said, I think I am being their fall guy. And I'm like, the fall guy for what? What is it? Tell me. What is it that they're trying to pin on you? What did they do? And he just wouldn't say anything else. And then so then I get frustrated again because he's not answering my questions. So I turn around and I'm going to walk away again, because I'm just so frustrated that he's not saying anything. And that's when he tells me either I am a man of God or I am not.
All right, we could do a whole hour on Zulema, too, what she knew and didn't know, possibly. But we're talking about Alex Cox right now, and that leads us to our next question in our investigation, and that is, who else did Alex Cox kill? We know for sure that he killed the kids, or we believe so. That's the implication from investigators. Lori and Chad went down for those murders. Alex Cox, of course, died, so he wasn't ever put on trial, even though he was absolutely there 100%. Still here helping us with our investigation is Lori Vallow Daybell's uncle, Rex Connor. Also joining us, private investigator Lauren Vellucci. Lauren, what's your take on Alex's role? And we know that he was on some level the family hitman, but was he also part of the brain trust?
Yeah, I think he was. I think he was the one that had the balls to do it. I think that Lori kind of called the shots, But when it came to the actual murders, I think he was a fall guy.
Rex, you do a podcast with, as you said, the good brother. What's your take on Alex? You knew him. What was his role in all of this?
Yeah, I was close to Alex till he became a part of Lori's ridiculous religion. And I'm not so sure that Lori wasn't involved in the murders either. There's nothing that has been proven about that. And so with this case, I don't count out anything. Did Alex kill Lori's previous husband, Joseph Ryan? That's possible. I respect the work of Joseph's estranged sister, Annie Cushing. She's been pushing for that. I would love it if that was reopened and we could find more information, if some evidence would come out. I don't know what happened to Chad's next door neighbor who died mysteriously around this same time. So I don't count out anything once this evil started being perpetrated by these, and I got to take a little exception to you using the term brain trust with these people. There was not a complete brain amongst all of them. You couldn't put a whole one together. These were ignorant criminals perpetrating evil. I don't think there was any brain work involved. Sorry, I had to get that off my chest.
No, hey, I hear you. Yeah, it's more like the Three Stooges leading an army of nincompoops there that they were on a run, boy. With the whole doomsday nonsense. Here is the Fremont County Sheriff's Office detective who investigated this case, talk about where Alex Cox's phone was. Near a church, 3 miles away from the Daybell residence. And this is basically talking about the death of Tammy Daybell.
The device that was associated with Alex Cox and Homer J. Maximus, and looking through the data, the night of October 18th, 2019, that device was at the Salem Church at 10:04 that night, or 10:05 p.m.
Sometime just after 10?
Correct.
Do you know how long the device showed as being located in that vicinity?
In correctional time, I believe it was 10:07 p.m., and it showed him there until 10:45 p.m.
And when we're talking about a geofence warrant, do you know what type of data they're looking at as far as placing a device there?
I believe that is off Wi-Fi and GPS.
So with the geofence, it's located there until 10:45 p.m. of October 18th, correct?
Correct.
Did you learn anything else in relation to that device as far as any later time that night?
That device shuts off or goes dormant and is no longer there. And it is later picked up at 11:53, roughly 7 miles south of the church.
So the implication there is this is when Tammy Daybell died. She dies next to Chad. He's laying there with her, and but Alex is around. He's within a few miles. Lauren, do you think that Alex was involved directly with the murder of Tammy Daybell? Was he the one that gave her whatever it was that turned out to be her demise?
I do, because I don't think that Chad had the guts to do it himself, and I think that also Lori, to me, seems a bit of a control freak, and so I think she wanted it done right, in her opinion. And so I think that she wouldn't have trusted him to just do it unless she had some kind of a role in it. So I do think Alex was there and participated in that murder as well.
Rex, we know that he likely was there for the attempted murder, just wasn't a very good shot of Tammy. Then what about the night that she dies? Because he's got to get into the house. What's your take? Who killed Tammy?
I subscribe to the theory. I don't have any more insight than anyone else. I subscribe to the theory that Chad let Alex in and they killed her. You know, someone held her down, someone smothered her. I think that's entirely possible.
And then Chad went on the with the theatrics after the first responders showed up and acted as though, oh my goodness, my wife she's been having some horrible health problems. What's your take, Lauren? Rex brought up the Ryan death where he had a heart attack. I mean, Alex Cox did get him with a stun gun and it would later joke about it because he was a budding comedian in his mind. Do you think that he also killed Lori's other husband, third husband?
Listen, Ted, I think where there's smoke, there's fire. So the amount of death that surrounds this woman, and no, it wasn't like dominoes falling, and this analogy that she gave to Keith Morrison. No, death surrounds her because she is killing them or having others kill them. So I'm right on the page as that Rex is. I think that is very possible. And where there's smoke, there's fire. And I think with each murder, with each death, they got more brazen and they made more mistakes.
Yeah, they sure did, and everybody thinks they can get away with it, and very few people can. And this crew, as you said, Rex, they were not a brain trust. They were something very different, evil to the core. And Lori is going to have her final day in court in Arizona coming up later this week. Lauren, Rex, thank you for being with us. Appreciate your time on this Monday night. Up next, what about Chad? Does Chad still love Lori? She says she still loves him.
What?
I'm Ted Rowlands in for Vinnie Politan tonight. The subject of our investigation, the woman we used to call the Doomsday Cult Mom, until she was convicted of killing 2 of her children. Now she's just a Doomsday Cult killer. I'm, of course, talking about Lori Daybell. Here's the story. Lori Vallow Daybell's marital history is marked by a series of relationships that culminated in a complex web of criminal investigations and trials. The 4th marriage to Charles Vallow, a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, began in 2006. The couple adopted Joshua J.J. Vallow, Charles's grandnephew, and raised him alongside Lori's daughter, Tylee Ryan. However, by 2019, their marriage had deteriorated, and Charles expressed concern about Lori's increasingly erratic behavior and apocalyptic beliefs. He filed for divorce, citing that Lori believed she was one of the chosen ones preparing for the end of times. And on July 11th, 2019, Charles was fatally shot by Lori's brother, Alex Cox, in Chandler, Arizona. Cox claimed self-defense, but prosecutors alleged that Lori conspired with him to murder Charles for financial gain, including a $1 million life insurance policy. Following Charles's death, Lori moved to Idaho and married Chad Daybell, the Doomsday Prophet. Lori and Chad were convicted of the murders of her children and Chad's wife, Tammy. And now, Lori is a convicted killer in Arizona as well, after a jury found her guilty in the death of Charles and guilty for trying to have her niece's ex-husband killed. There's no Chad without Lori. There's no Lori without Chad. Those two, of course, fell, I guess, in love. And part of their love was this just bizarre religious take on who they were. They thought that they had lived many other lives, been married before, in different galaxies. And at the end of times, they would be standing there ushering people in. The 144,000 would be led by Chad and Lori. And Chad was this prolific writer. Of course, he wrote all these books, and he was the one that was able to bring Lori into his world. And one of the things that he wrote about was himself and Lori and their love affair. He changed the names to James and Elena. And it's gross to listen to, but let's do it.
But on the morning of October 26th, James arrived in St. George still a bit baffled by the message he had received. MG introduced James to her friend Elena. When their hands touched, he felt a shock pass through him and his heart started beating fast. He had glimpses of them walking dusty paths together, and he realized they had been married during the life of Jesus Christ, and they had been very close to him. At this time, their spirits could not be restrained any longer, and a long-awaited makeout session took place in that lobby. This was manifest in the mortal world to James and Elena through the scientific phenomenon known as loin fire. As they talked, James had a burning desire to make love to her, but he wasn't sure she felt the same way. The erotic tension continued throughout the afternoon. James could only think of her. His desire for her was indescribable. Thankfully, she had worn 16 layers of clothing to survive the 80-degree weather, so he was not fully aware that she truly had the body of a goddess. Her dimensions were exactly what he had always fantasized about, but that revelation would have to wait a month. They would both attend the same event in mid-November, and it seemed like that day would never arrive. He knew they had been married before, and they had been close friends with the Savior when he lived in Jerusalem. That relationship was now meant to continue in this lifetime. They hungered for each other, and he leaned forward and fulfilled a promise he had made to her a few days earlier. He gently kissed her tender lips, and the same heavenly electricity filled his entire body. The passionate magic they had felt many centuries earlier came surging back powerfully. James moved to the couch, and Elena straddled him effortlessly, as if they had done this thousands of times before. She fit perfectly on him, and they pressed their loins tightly against each other. They were still fully clothed, but the intensity of the intimacy was undeniable.
The loin fire. It captured Chad. That leads us to our next question in our investigation. Does Chad still, after all of this, still love Lori? Well, we've got a couple people that can help us answer that question. Lori Vallow Daybell's cousin, Megan Connor, is with us. She is also host of the Midlife Revolution podcast on YouTube. And Nate Eaton, news director, reporter, and storyteller extraordinaire from the EastIdahoNews.com is with us as well. Nate, you had an opportunity to talk to Lori. We listened to that interview. And let's start by listening to what Lori says about Chad and the fact that she still, I guess, loves him. And we'll get your take.
You told me years ago Chad was the best man you've ever met.
Chad is a very kind person, yes.
Is that still true?
Yes.
So besides his spirituality, what else attracts you to Chad?
He's a wonderful person. Everyone who knows him knows that.
How often are you able to talk with him?
So we aren't really speaking.
By your own choice, or just because it's not allowed from like prison to prison?
Yeah, like the way that the mail works here is very difficult.
I see.
So we're only allowed to get postcards. Like you can't send a letter to the jail itself, and so there's difficulties within that.
But you still love him.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you've said you'll be exonerated, and he will too.
Absolutely, we will.
Will that be before he's executed?
Yes, Nate, before he's executed.
So does it bother you though that in Chad's trial he blamed it on you and Alex?
It's so different what goes on behind the scenes in a high-profile case. Okay, there's strategies going on, there's defenses going on, there's all these things going on that you wish, like, why can't we just go in and tell our side of the story? The attorneys are like, you can't do that. We have to come up with a defense, and we have to do this, and we have to do this, and like, why don't we just go? Why isn't it you thought, like, if you've never been in the judicial system, which I hadn't before, you thought they get to tell their side of the story, what they think happened, you get to go in and tell your side of the story of what happened, and then the jury gets to decide. And that's not what happens. That's not what happens at all. And it's so sad and disappointing that's...
So you think Chad, they had to come up with a defense just to have one in court. You don't think he really believed or blamed all of this on you and Alex?
Absolutely. And I know that for a fact because John Pryor came and told me that prior to trial.
He did. He said, this is going to be our defense.
He said, I'm going to blame you, and Chad doesn't want me to, and he wants you to know that.
Why has Chad been excommunicated?
Is great. So I think that was false, too. That was mean. That was mean.
To excommunicate him?
Absolutely.
Are you still a member?
As far as I know.
All right, Nate Eaton, do you think Chad still loves Lori?
I don't know. I would imagine so. It's as she mentioned, it's hard to have a relationship when your state's apart, prison's apart. He doesn't have anybody else other than, his kids who call him every day. There was one moment, Ted, I remember in one hearing, I believe it was just one, maybe two, where they were physically together in the same courtroom. They kept having these court hearings over the past 5 years where they were never together, but it happened once or twice. And I remember them sitting down at the different defense tables, and they put the attorneys between them. And during a break, the attorneys stood up and kind of walked away to use the restroom or whatever. And Chad and Lori looked at each other and smiled and mouthed, "I love you." And that was the first time they were able to see each other in person. They'll never see each other in person again. And while she maintains her devotion to him, even though the only kind things she can say about him, it seems, is he's kind, he's a nice person, I would imagine that he probably feels the same way about her, but not as much, not as devoted as perhaps she is to him.
Megan, do you think that either one of them has regret sitting there alone in a jail cell, that they let this thing get out of control?
Well, there are two thoughts that I have when I heard your initial question of, does Chad still love Lori? And one is, in Nate's interview of Lori that we were just watching, it's very telling that Lori says we're not speaking. She didn't actually answer Nate's question. She revealed, I think, a little more than she wanted to reveal, because if she wanted to talk about the fact that they were not allowed to speak, she would have said that. But instead what she said is, we're not speaking. When you say that, it means that one of you is angry with the other, and you're not speaking for a reason. And the other thing that comes to mind is watching Chad during his own trial, watching his body language and how he seemed to physically deflate when the verdict was read that he was guilty. And knowing that that was going to likely be the death penalty for him. And I think there was some form of recognition that happened with Chad at that point, where he realized that he had gone very, very badly astray, and that Lori had led him to this point. And so in my mind, I think that Chad has had a change of heart. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but that's what I read by his body language. And for Lori to confirm that they're not speaking means that one of them is angry with the other. And I would wager that probably Chad is angry with Lori and not the other way around.
Nate, who was running the show, in your opinion? Was it Chad or Lori? Little Alex on the side?
I don't think Alex ever was leading them, Ted, but I do believe that there were moments where it was Lori. There were moments where it was Chad. The prosecution made a big statement that they were both manipulating each other. So when things weren't moving quick enough for Lori, she would text Chad and say, you know what, go spend time with your family. I don't care anymore. Go live your life. Chad would immediately then beg to come back to her. No, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. But then there were moments, too, where, Chad would manipulate Lori back by saying he was getting these visions. The love story that you just had, read on the air, that was him coaxing her ego and saying, oh, she has the body of a goddess, all these compliments. Lori loves to hear nice things about herself. So it's been described that one was a match and one was gasoline, and together they caused this fire, this explosion. And I think there were points where they were both leading each other. Lori definitely has the personality of the leader, of being the one in charge, of being the one that pushes things forward, versus Chad, who's a little bit more melancholy.
Interesting, yeah. Let's get a break here. When Gus is going to stick around. When we return, what about Lori? Her mental does she sound normal? Nate will tell us. Stay with us.
The first time JJ visited me after he passed away, he put his arm around me and he said to me, "You didn't do anything wrong, Mom."
Two
parents face a jury.
Over the attempted murder of their own daughter.
Court TV takes you inside the trial that's torn a family apart.
The attempted honor killing trial. Live coverage weekday mornings, only on Court TV.
Donna Adelson is facing charges of murder, the death of her former son-in-law.
This is terrible. Now that Donna has turned into a defendant, what's next for the Adelson clan?
The matriarch mastermind murder trial. Live coverage this August on Court TV.
How long have you lived here?
Like 3 weeks.
Oh, geez. Yeah, okay.
That's why the neighbors don't know us.
Gotcha.
I didn't see the shot, I heard it, and then I came back around and I saw that he was on the ground.
I was told by Jesus that I needed to go back and complete things that I had covenanted or promised to do before I was born.
I thought Tylee did it to get back at me.
We're talking to Lori Vallow. At one point, remember, in Idaho, she was deemed unfit to stand trial because of her mental fitness. A judge said we cannot move forward until things change. Then things did change, and she not only stood trial in Idaho, but then again in Arizona, and ended up representing herself. So did she make a full circle? Is she completely with it? Well, Nate Eaton talked to her while she was in Arizona, and the way she says things makes you think she's pretty lucid. But sometimes the things she says, you're wondering, including this.
Do you feel bad about anything that's happened? Do you have any remorse, any apology, anything?
Bad about anything that's a really broad question.
It is a broad question. About the past 6 years. Any? Do you feel bad about it?
Do I have bad feelings about anyone?
Not bad feelings. Do you personally feel bad or feel some remorse for the victims in these cases?
None of the people are victims. So
are you the victim? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not saying I'm a victim at all. I'm not saying that at all. I'm an instrument in God's hands.
You don't feel bad. You're saying none of these people are victims.
I feel
Kay
bad,
and Larry
of
aren't
course.
victims. Brandon's not a victim?
No. I'm not saying that people haven't had hard things happen to them in their life. Everyone has hard things happen to them in their life, right? The judicial system plays up the victim thing pretty big, right? We've seen it happen.
What? That leads us to our final question of our investigation here. Does Lori sound normal? Meaning, is she with it or not? Nate Eaton is still with us, along with Megan Connor. Megan, what's your take on her mental fitness at this point?
Well, first of all, there's nothing normal about what Lori says. Let's just put that out there. Secondly, I really, really appreciate Nate asking that question. That is a perfect question to ask someone with narcissistic tendencies, is if they have any remorse or if they take any responsibility for what has happened. Because someone with narcissistic traits cannot answer that question in a straight way, as we saw with Lori. And so I really believe there is nowhere in her mind where she thinks she has done anything wrong. Now, is she normal? Absolutely not. We have to remember that the standard for mental competency by the legal definition in Idaho as well as Arizona just means two things. One, can you participate in your own defense? And two, do you understand the charges that are being brought against you? So obviously at some point in Idaho, she was not able to participate in her own defense. And that was what got her sent to a mental institution for treatment. But now that she understands the charges and she's able to participate in her defense in Arizona, she became her own attorney, and the judge took her through a litany of questions that confirmed that she was not under the influence of drugs or alcohol. She was not under duress of any kind, so she could legally represent herself. So is she normal? No. But meeting the legal standard to be able to participate in your own defense and to understand the charges against you does not mean that you're not delusional. It doesn't mean that you're not narcissistic. It doesn't mean you don't have a personality disorder. It just means those two things and nothing more.
Yeah, I got to be honest, when she represented herself, I thought we were going to go down some crazy roads there in Arizona, and she was much more capable than I thought she was. Nate, what's it like sitting next to her? What was your feeling, the vibe that you get in terms of her mental fitness?
I think you described it well, Ted, in the fact that in talking with her, if you didn't know anything about her and you met her at a grocery store or something, you'd think, this is a friendly woman who, is charming in a way. But then you quickly realize that she's not 100% there, that as Megan said, she's not normal. And the question is, does she act this way on purpose? Does she know what she's doing? Or has this just become so part of her that this is who she is? There clearly were indications in Idaho that she was not fit for trial. She went away for nearly a year and actually enjoyed her time in the institution and liked her time there. She was able to wear normal clothes and have her hair done and wasn't locked up in a cell all day long. The question will be, will she decide to do what she did at sentencing in Idaho? Remember, you played a bit of it there where she, for 20 minutes, did not accept any responsibility for what happened. It was all me, Jesus loves me, Jesus this, Jesus that. I imagine we could see that again happening in Arizona, and I don't know if she ever will take any sort of responsibility for what she has done.
Yeah, and Megan, she said that she's in communication with Tylee and JJ, and Tammy's her friend in Idaho. What are you expecting in Arizona, talking about Charles and Brandon, who we heard her discount to Nate's question? She scoffed at it. He's not a victim, she claims. What are you expecting in Arizona?
Well, this is the thing that infuriates me more than anything else about Lori, is that she is so disrespectful to her own victims, where she tells everybody that she's in communication with them. You didn't do anything wrong, Mom. She refers to Charles as her husband when actually her husband is on death row in Idaho. This is the thing that I think infuriates me and probably most family members and other victims more than anything else, is her disrespect to the people that she's harmed. But I do think she's going to take her opportunity to give another allocution statement, because she knows it's her last chance to speak publicly. In Idaho, she is not allowed to have any kind of contact with the press. She's not allowed to give interviews. And so she knows, I think, that this is her last opportunity to get her narrative out there in the world. And I think she's going to take full advantage of it. The thing that I've said across, the last few years of this is that Lori's going to Lori. She's going to do the things she has always done. Nobody should be surprised by that. Are we disappointed? Are we horrified? Are we shocked? Yes, but we're not surprised, because this has been her tactic all along. And it's no different than what she's done in the past. So it's unfortunately super harmful to the victims, both living and dead. But it's something we just have to endure for just a few more days. And then she's going to go away forever. And she's not going to be allowed to speak publicly again, as far as I believe.
Yeah, it could be it. The end to what a saga it has been. Nate, Megan, thank you very much for being here. We appreciate your time. Lori Daybell could have had an amazing life, surrounded by children and family. She could have been celebrated, could have been a grandparent, watching little ones grow into happy adults. Instead, she chose murder of her own children, so she could hang out with Chad in Hawaii with a grave digger and a bag of money. Why would anyone make that choice? It's tough to tell, but she made it. And we'll hear from her possibly for the last time in Arizona when she is sentenced for the final time. I'm Ted Rowlands in for Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation continues.